Welcome to Crooners and Coffeeshops, everyone. My name is Heather. Today I have Noa Zimmerman here to discuss new music as well as all of the philanthropical and social justice work that she does. Noa, would you like to kind of give us a little bit of insight in regards to how you got started in music?
Sure. I've been playing as long as I can remember. My big brother played guitar, and so I would go and steal his sheet music when I was about 8 and try and teach myself. And I picked up the bass because everyone else played guitar and I wanted to do something different. So I was doing bass since I was 8 as well. And eventually it just turned to songwriting really naturally. I didn't really think, oh, I'm going to be a songwriter. It was just sort of like I wrote songs in my free time. That's just what I did. And it evolved because I'd been doing it so long. I started to feel comfortable with it and feel like I was getting good at expressing what I was going through. And yeah, now I'm here. I'm studying songwriting at USC and also music production. And so it kind of just evolved into my whole life without me really choosing it or directing it.
And I love that you ended up picking up the bass because I kind of feel the same way. Everybody learns guitar, but we need
Right.
more female bassists out there. So
And the thing is, if you want to learn guitar, you have to get really good at it to stand out. That's sort of like what I figured out. And so I practiced all the time. But yeah, it's picking up a different instrument can be cool too. A lot easier, I think.
yeah, absolutely. And kind of going into your music, you actually just released a new single called Rapture. And I love how dreamlike it is. And, it's got very meaningful lyrics as well as the accompanying music video as well that we'll go into a little bit after. How would you say that the songwriting and recording process for Rapture and any upcoming work that you have scheduled was similar or different than that of your past work that you had released?
Rapture was a really new process to me because I have always been the kind of person who writes lyrics with the guitar sort of at the same time. And then last year I had a professor who was mentoring me and he suggested that I start just writing free form and poems every day just to get myself into that space where I'm not intimidated at all by writing. So when I'm in the zone, I can just do it without thinking. So I would write every day and sometimes it would just be terrible or nothing or just random words. And then sometimes it would come out like the lyrics to that song. So I wrote it as a poem and I had it sitting around for a while. And then I got a new guitar. And whenever, I think probably a lot of people are like this, when you get a new instrument, you get really inspired by it. And so it was my first night with the guitar and I was like, prove to me you were worth the however much money the guitar was. And then I just wrote the guitar part and the song came together. And I used it for a school assignment in my arranging class for writing the string arrangement, which I'd never done before. So like a lot of it was my first time doing these things. And eventually I showed it to one of my professors after producing it myself for a while. And he was like, I think that this deserves to be done to the highest level. And he connected me with Doug Petty, who is the keyboardist for Tears for Fears and an amazing producer. And so he worked with me on that. And so I've never worked with a producer of that caliber. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's always great to hear when, you kind of go out of your comfort zone a little bit and then things spiral out in the best way possible. And like you said, you ended up working with an amazing producer. Tears for Fears, a band that a lot of people know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, kind of to discuss the music video, you chose to bring focus to the oil drilling that's been happening in Cat Canyon out in Santa Maria. And you're also great about using your social media platforms to showcase your passion for activism, which is also really amazing and very much needed now. How important do you feel it is for creatives and anyone really that has a large platform or even any amount of platform to use their voices to speak out on topics that people normally try to avoid?
I think it's vital, and I think people are realizing that more and more now, like with the BLM movement and climate change and all these things that are just really looming and really have been systematic issues for so long that we've been ignoring, and people are waking up. And you can see it on Instagram that artists and just everyone is starting to focus more on that. There's a little less narcissism going on social media than there used to be, which is pretty cool to see. And I like look through my old notebooks from when I was 10 years old or whatever, and I would write these cheesy lines about peace and coexistence. And so it's always been like back then I didn't have any personal drama. What else was I supposed to write about than like world peace? So it's always been part of it for me. And my biggest heroes are, Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and the Beatles, and these people who were breaking down barriers with what they were doing because they knew that they had the platform to make a difference and they used it responsibly. And I mean, artists can communicate in a way that politicians can't. Like, they can reach people that the government can't reach. They can inspire people in a way that the people who lead our country can't always do. And so I think that it brings us together and it raises awareness. And there's a huge responsibility on artists. And that's not to say every piece you make needs to be some big statement, because writing a song about love or self-love, that's important too, because that makes us feel connected. But especially in a time like we're in right now, we need voices coming out and saying something. And even if you inspire one person, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with artists that are using their platforms responsibly. We always forget that, like, they do have the voice. I mean, any normal person can obviously have a conversation with, a family member or a friend that might need a little bit more of a talking to and a discussion on what's going on. But, actors, actresses, musicians, creative artists, YouTubers, influencers, they have the following to kind of reach a little bit more on the long scale because they have more people that are seeing them and listening to them. They're more in the spotlight. And we always forget that music in and of itself is such a universal language. You can have a song about activism and it can reach all the way to Japan. It can reach to France. It can reach to South Africa, Mexico, anywhere.
And I think in the past, there's been a stigma about that, especially with really famous people. They're afraid to make statements because, their audience all around the world might be divided in their ideology. And so, they're scared of losing their fans. And at this point, you're seeing so many actors and musicians who've never said anything political, realizing that it's too important not to. And that's been really amazing.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. And I love that you brought up, it's always good to write songs that, like are about self-love or just love in general, just normal topics that all of us experience in our lives, because that's also really important too. And, we can't just forget about the other things in our lives as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I wanted to go into a little bit about some of your foundations that you've been working with. Like, not only have you founded the nonprofit program Sound Waves, which provides free lessons, instruments, and scholarships for underprivileged youth out in Marin City, but you also co-founded the virtual social action focused community platform, the Activism Foundation, which is like really amazing and very inspiring. And when I grow up, I want to be you. Would you love to share a little bit about like kind of how you got inspired to start bringing these programs to life?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I was a junior in high school when I started the plans for creating sound waves, which I mean, I'd been teaching lessons at this elementary school that was largely African American students. And there was another school, I think it was a charter school, where all the white kids were going. And so there was this huge disparity. And actually, after we started the program, there was like some investigative journalist figured out that there had been like a diversion of funding, and it had just been like very systematically screwing the kids at the school that I was working at. And so before that even came out, it was very clear that the disparity was huge. And I was teaching lessons there and getting close to the students and hearing their stories. And there was just a lot of really heartbreaking stuff. There was a lot of shootings, a lot of kids who had lost family members, and it was just painful for me to hear. And then I would sit and listen to these kids play music and write songs and see the confidence that they could gain. And I think that expression is so important, especially if you don't have role models and you have a lot of reason to be angry. I mean, learning music, it could be the difference between like getting angry and having a gun in your hand and getting angry and having a guitar in your hand. And I think that's such an important thing to teach kids, how to express what they're going through, because everyone has trouble dealing with things, and there are coping mechanisms that are healthy and there's some that are really unhealthy and destructive. So that's why the school was about to lose funding for their music program, or it seemed like that. And so I worked with the former principal to create an extracurricular program that was completely free so that they could continue to have music lessons. And I mean, it was the most amazing experience for me to be part of this and to watch it come together. And I felt when I left for college, I felt this huge gap in my life because for the first 2 years I was focusing on myself, and that was great because you have to grow as a person in order to be able to help other people. But I was traveling in Tibet and India last summer, and I went to a couple orphanages, and I realized how much I missed having that in my life, being able to help people. One of my mentors tells me that, the key to happiness is gratitude and service. And I think that that's completely on point. And so that's why I started working on the documentary in Santa Maria that led to the music video for Rapture, because I needed to do something that could help. And they were about to do all this oil drilling, and my friend started this documentary project. And so I love filmmaking, so I had the equipment and I was like, I'll film it for you, let's do it. And then of course the pandemic hit and we didn't get to finish it, but I had all this footage. And one of the people on the crew for the documentary, we were driving back from Santa Maria one day and having this conversation because she's an amazing visual artist and activist. And we were like, everything gets so drowned out on Instagram. You post a poem and you get 20 likes, but you post a picture of your face and you get 200 likes. And it's just really discouraging. And we were like, what if there's a platform specifically for activist artists where they can share their work, they can sell their work, they can find ways to make a living as well as raise money for causes. They can find ways to create demonstrations with their art, go out into the real world and do protests. And they can connect with each other and collaborate and find people near you who are passionate about what you're passionate about, and organizations near you that you can work with. And we just got really excited about this idea. And 2 weeks later, we were stuck at home because the pandemic, and we were like, let's make this happen. And now it's been 6 months and we've made huge progress. I'm really excited about it. We have so many big plans down the road, like we can do in-person programs through our organization for underprivileged kids to teach them, how to make socially conscious art and how to express themselves in that way. So it's going to be really cool, and I'm working with the most amazing people, and it inspires my art. I mean, we're creating what we want for ourselves. I want to have a profile on the app that we're creating. I think it's going to be really cool. If you want to check it out, you can go to www.artivist, which is like activist with an R, artivistcollective.org, and you can read about what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely checking out the website and all of the awesome things that you're doing. And I think it's an amazing platform. And I know that, at least from also my artist friends, whether it's musicians or filmmakers or just, standard graphic artists and such, they kind of felt the same way that you were saying, where okay, it's just so drowned out on social media because people's priorities are a little bit different in regards to what they want to see on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and such. And sometimes their art just gets bogged down. And I love that you created this type of platform, and I think it's going to be amazing for not only US artists but also just artists around the world that have something that they want to say that's going to be beneficial for the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, world peace, everybody.
And we want artists already to get involved. We're doing campaigns on social media where we feature an artist every week, and that way they get more exposure and they can share what we're doing so we can build our community. So, I mean, on our website, you can see where you can apply for that. We just want to build our community, get as many people as possible involved, because I think it's going to be a big movement.
Yeah, and the arts community has always been extremely powerful, whether people would like to admit it or not. And kind of with everything that's going on right now, a lot of people are just looking for something to do because they can't go out to play shows. They can't, some of people are limited to what they can release right now. They can't go on tour. They can't do normal things that they had before the pandemic. And this is a great way for them to get their message out as well.
Exactly. Yeah. It's more important now than ever.
Absolutely. And what do you hope that your audience will take away from your music?
I feel like I'm learning more and more that you can't control what people think about anything you do, let alone your art. But I would love it if someone listened to one of my songs and said, I can do this. I can use my art to say something, or, that's a good point. Why don't I go out and try and help? Like, now is the moment. There's two sides of it. I would love people to hear it and be inspired to take action, and I would love people to hear it and think, I feel this way too. It's good to know that someone else out there is acknowledging what's going on or feeling the feelings that I have. The same way that my heroes have influenced me, I think it's always the dream for you to have the effect on other people as your influences have had on you.
Absolutely. And to kind of end off the interview portion, what big exciting things should we be expecting from you apart from all of the Artivist Foundation campaigns that are going to be running?
Well, I'm releasing a couple songs. For some reason, when they got sent to Spotify, it said one of them was explicit, which it wasn't. So I figured I made a mistake, and I spent the money to re-upload it, and they sent it over as explicit again, and now I give up. So it's coming out on October 7th. They are not explicit. One of them is called Palindrome King, and the other is called Invisible Strings. And I have been sitting on these songs for a while. They're two of my favorites that I've ever written, and they aren't social commentary, so it almost feels weird to be putting it out right now with everything else going on. But I think that maybe it'll be a good escape to remember that personal drama exists too.
Yes, especially right now when we have nothing to do but sit at home and be alone with our dark, deep thoughts.
Exactly. The COVID depression is real.
Yes. Self-care, everybody. Just remember that.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
get through this, as much as I hate that term. We're all in this together.
Yeah, we are.
And here at Crooners and Coffeeshops, we love our coffee. And, a lot of our favorite coffee shops are still closed due to pandemic, but it's always important to support local coffee and local businesses in general. Today, I actually went to Board House Cafe. It's out kind of near Santa Monica, West LA here. I got a s'mores latte because that's the only time I'll be able to have s'mores since no one in my household likes s'mores, apparently.
What?
And, right? They're crazy people. I live with crazy people, everyone. But I also got this really awesome, avocado grilled cheese with pesto, and I'm in love, and now I want to make it myself. Where did you get to go today, or do you have any coffee shops that you would like to shout out?
There are two local ones here. I'm in Northern California in Marin County, and one is called the Coffee Roastery, and the other is called Coffee Roasters. Can I tell a story about those two coffee shops?
Absolutely. We love to hear personal stories with your favorite coffee shops.
So I was applying to colleges, and I got an interview with Brown, which was really exciting. And they said, let's meet at this time at the Coffee Roasters, which I didn't know existed at the time. I only knew of the Coffee Roasteries. So, of course, I went to the Coffee Roastery thinking it had been a typo. And I went to the wrong coffee shop for my Brown interview and eventually realized my mistake and went over about 15 or 20 minutes late. And I did not get into that school, but I love both the coffee shops.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny how little things like that can happen.
Yeah,
And how frequently they can happen too. So I thought that just happened to me, but it happens to everybody, I guess.
it definitely happens to everyone. Unfortunately, it had to be at a pretty high stakes time. I hope that when it happens to you, it's at a more casual get together.
So to end up our interview, where can everybody find you online?
You can find my music on Spotify. It's Noa Zimmerman, and Noah is spelled without an H. It's just Noa. That's the girl version, I guess. And my Instagram, well, actually, on Instagram, I'm going to direct you straight to the organization's page so you can check out the cool artists we've been featuring. So the organization's Instagram is called Collective by Artivist because we are the Artivist Foundation, and the social media we're creating is called Collective. So you can check that out. If you want to see my personal one and the art that I have been making, you can go to, it's at N.O.A_Z. which I'm realizing is not the most conducive to saying in words, but it looks cool visually, so that's why I did it.
All for the gram, for sure.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there, everyone, and stay caffeinated.